Hello, welcome back to Moles on Mission, where we talk about us.
Again.
All right, are you ready for my prepared question today?
Am I ever?
Are you ever? That's a good question.
No.
My question today: if you could gain a sixth sense, what would it be? Now, you can make up a sense, like an additional sixth sense, or you can choose one that humans don't have that exist already in the world.
Oh, that's really fun.
I have my real answer and then my other backup answer in case you say my real answer. So,
Okay. Wow. Sixth sense.
I mean, you can just start listing off other senses that animals have or
Real quick.
yeah.
And it's because I'm curious, not because I'm stalling. Um, did you come up with this when we were talking about Malachi's honing with the
It
pacifiers?
might be. I don't remember. I've had this one
It's-
bouncing around in my head for a couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
It's been written down for a minute.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure that's Malachi's
I think
sixth
that is
sense
Malachi's
is
sixth sense. If there is a pacifier within a 10-foot radius, even if it is hidden from sight, he can make a beeline right to it.
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's also funny because he'll just rotate between them.
Yes, he will. If he's got 3 pacifiers, he'll suck on one for like 3 or 4 sucks, and then drop it and grab the next one, and he just keeps trying them out. Like, he would be an excellent product reviewer for pacifier companies
Yep.
if he could talk and write and actually give a review.
Sixth sense. Okay. I'm thinking of a lot of different ones, and I think honestly one that I don't have that I would love is the is a sixth sense of direction, just
Okay.
or of orientation somehow. Like I
Okay.
can sense where the sun is. Not
So, like
Like-
animals that can sense the magnetic fields of the Earth,
yes,
and they know their directions and stuff.
Yeah. I
Interesting.
trekking through the woods today.
Uh-huh.
I and the two gals who were with me were all commiserating over the fact that we are very good at getting lost.
So you
And-
guys were the blind leading the blind.
It was a bit of that.
Okay.
And yeah, I think it would be really helpful if I could just always know where north is and always like know my
Just have an innate
orientation.
sense of direction.
I don't know if that's a sense though. Now that I think about it, now that I say it, I feel like a sixth sense that would be
Well, I said
helpful.
you could make one up.
Well, no, but like
So that would be a sense.
Mm,
Yeah. There are animals that can sense magnetic fields, and
if I could have
therefore
a
have
sixth sense for deals,
for deals,
just always knowing where to buy the.
then I would
the-
need a sixth sense of money manufacturing.
No,
or something.
see, I would not be buying all the time. I would save. I would buy the foods. Like I feel this way a lot when we're
Uh-huh.
grocery shopping. It's like, is this the best place to get? I want to get quality.
So just knowing there's a better deal on
There's-
this over there.
Yes, and knowing is it worth the drive?
Oh, my
I don't know.
goodness.
I feel like that would be useful, and some people have that sense. But I
directions
think
or deals, you got to pick one.
directions.
You would pick directions.
I would. I think that
An
is
innate sense of direction.
yes.
Okay. Very cool. Mine would be echolocation.
Oh my goodness.
I would love that because you don't need light then. You can move anywhere without needing to see.
There. I don't remember if this was on Animal Planet or something. It was an episode or a show on bats
Okay.
and dolphins. It was talking about echolocation. I guess for dolphins it's sonar. So
Yeah.
bats. And this guy, he was blind,
Mhm.
and he had trained himself to hear. Like he could click. He navigated a maze,
Wow.
and he was blind. And what was extra cool,
Mhm.
like for that, it's like okay, so he's got a heightened
Yeah.
awareness of sound because he's not
Yeah.
distracted by, or he doesn't have the sense of sight. His son, though, could also. He had taught his son how to do it also.
Interesting.
I don't remember where this was.
Yeah.
I cannot verify if it was just a TV stunt.
If I'm able to verify before this episode goes up, it will be in the description.
Yeah. But, very cool.
So that would be mine. Because it's like, if I walk into a room and it's like, I have to spend time finding the light switch. If it's like a new room and you're in it and you're like, okay, is it by this door? Is it by the other door?
It's like Nate
I have
Bargatze.
to go through this whole thing
I'm really
to
good at
turn
turning
on the light
lights.
to then find what I need to find. I would love it if I could just walk into a room, or even at night, just walk around and you're aware of where everything is.
And not have to worry about blinding yourself or waking the baby or stepping on things. Yeah, I could see the usefulness of that.
That would be mine. I would love that. 6 cents.
I'm good at turning off lights. Like, scary good. Like, probably one of the best. I can turn off all the lights in your house.
You really like everything Nate Bargatze, except when he makes fun of the English language, don't you?
I have an issue more with the way that people say his name. I'm pretty sure he says his own name is Nate Bargatze.
I'm pretty sure I don't care.
That's fair. It really is. You do realize you just
that may
recorded
or may not
yourself.
make it into the edit.
You recorded yourself saying "I don't care" to your wife.
Yes, but I also have the power of the edit button to remove things that I don't like about what I say.
Revealing your secrets.
Yes, I am. All right.
If it never makes it into the edit, they'll never know.
They'll never know. All right, shall we talk about the update?
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, update time. So, Anna, we've both done a thing this week that we've never done before. You got to do 2 things this week that you've never really done before.
It's true.
So let's talk about the first thing you did first.
Actually, technically, that was last week.
Okay.
Let's just be nitpicky here.
Let's just be nitpicky. Tell us about the thing that you did that you had not done before.
I got behind the wheel of a 4-door Rubicon Jeep that I'd never done before.
Oh, yeah, that's the fun thing. The 4-door Rubicon.
Well, the Jeep was a means to an end besides just riding in a Jeep, which is fun.
Uh-huh.
And that was to learn how to drive stick shift.
Yep.
I did not know how. I had 2 lessons, 1 lesson.
Yep. Unfruitful lessons.
Turns out, I was definitely not in a teachable place. I think you have learned to read me better since then to know when to push for being adventurous and when not to. But the last time I was behind a stick shift, a manual transmission vehicle behind the wheel, I stalled on a speed bump and we were done.
Yep. And I was her instructor. And we decided in that moment that me being her instructor would not be beneficial for the long-term health of our relationship.
And I have discovered a lot about myself this week, but a huge thing on that, like at the top of the list, was a realization that I switch off my brain when mechanical things are being talked about. I just kind of have assumed I can't understand that off. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because you do talk about a lot of mechanical things.
I do.
And I listen, but I don't strive to understand. And here was the issue. It's not a defense. I definitely could have learned way back when. But in that scenario, you being the instructor, the instructor, but also the nerd that you are explaining the why behind every step of the driving. Like, when you do this, it engages this and does this to the gears, and then the wheels turn this. And I was like, it was too much
shut
information.
Up, tell me what buttons to push.
Yes. Yeah. But because you started talking mechanics, I switched my brain off, and therefore I could not learn anything at that point. That is my running theory. It is not. It still doesn't make me look any better than me throwing a temper tantrum and leaving the car. But yes, I conquered my fear of doing things that are very outside my wheelhouse.
I heard from your instructor that you did well as well.
He was a very good instructor. Not that you aren't, but I didn't know him.
But he was better.
He's been doing this for 20 years.
That's true.
He's been driving stick for
Ever.
not quite 60, probably 50 years. Yeah. So I learned to drive stick and I successfully did.
You even started, shifted, and engaged on a hill.
Yes, multiple times.
Yep.
That was part of the training. Was we drove to a road that was on a hill, and we started at the bottom and climbed and stopped, and started and stopped.
Yep.
And I felt very proud. Well, yeah, proud of myself, but also like I can do anything. A little bit of that at the end of that day. I was really happy. And I understand why people enjoy manual transmission vehicles over automatics driving around because it gives you something else to do.
Yeah.
Driving an automatic is almost too easy. So, granted, I have not driven in like a heavily populated area.
No, the worst is like interstate stopped traffic.
Oh,
where
yeah.
you inch 5 feet, stop. 5 feet, stop. And you do that for an hour. That is the worst.
Yeah. I was talking to one of the girls that was learning with me, and she's like, is your leg kind of, like, was it getting a little sore pushing in the clutch? I was like, yeah. So in the Jeep, the clutch is really, like...
It was. It's a long one.
It's a long throw. So
it engages...
halfway
really,
up.
Like, closer to the top. So you don't have to throw it all the way down when you shift. You just have to know where...
You're supposed to throw all the way down.
You just have to know where it disengages.
You're supposed to throw... No, if you put it almost all the way down, but not, the engine rattles.
Okay, so it was... like, you could do very fine controls.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was not so in my Ranger.
Yeah, well, your Ranger was tiny.
It was.
So yeah, learned how to drive stick.
Nice.
And we'll do it again. Yeah. That was last week.
And then you finished that on Friday, and on Monday we both showed up at the...
oh yeah, so funny story about... So sorry, cut you off, but a funny story that we had snow for the first time.
We did have snow.
Since moving up here, and it snowed the day I was supposed to have manual transmission training, and...
Yeah, I walked to work that day, and when I got to, like, the parking lots, it was like you take a step and you slide a foot, and then you take a step and you slide a foot, because all the snow had turned to ice.
Yeah,
so I called you on my walk, and I was like, you should probably not drive around today.
Yeah, and they did. They canceled.
Yeah.
They postponed it till Friday, but it was just a funny, like, before we knew it was canceled, I was like, do they really want to teach us how to drive in a manual transmission we've never done before?
Ice.
On snow I've never driven on before.
Yeah.
Like, I've never driven in snow. Oh, that's not true. I've done once on our way
Yes, you did once.
in the blizzard that we got cut in.
In the blizzard.
But yeah, that was a funny thing.
So that was Friday, and then Monday we showed up at the Overland or Land Ops Department of JARS, and we started our 4x4 off-roading class. It was the first half of the days for a week, and I kind of expected to spend the whole week pretty much out on the trails, and that was not the case, and I'm pretty glad that was not the case.
It was a very thorough training. It wasn't just driving instruction.
Yeah. I mean, day one, we did a thing that I had never done before. So, I had always been told, well, not always been told. I don't know where I was told, but I assumed that putting a plug in a tire was kind of a, like...
janky thing to do.
Kind of a shady operation for tires. They have us They pull out their plug kit. They pull out a tire. They drill a hole in the inflated tire, and then they tell us to plug it. And they showed us how to put a plug in.
Two different kinds of plugs, actually.
Two different kinds of plugs, and their trainer tire for this has like legitimately 100 plugs in it.
And they were using like a thick drill bit too,
Yeah,
like something
like-
you probably would never get a nail that thick in your tire.
Yeah, I mean it was a hefty hole they're punching in this thing, and then so the plug tool, you basically have this first one, which is like a round file almost, a really coarse round file. You put that in, and you
It's
move
shaped like a pencil.
you move it up and down so it cleans off the edges.
Makes it nice and smooth.
Then you get this thing that looks like almost like a Twizzler. You slide it in this giant sewing needle looking thing.
Yeah.
This is the one I did. This is not the one you.
No. I was confused about the Twizzler because I was picturing the tool, not the plug.
Okay, yeah.
So the plug
So you take
material looks like a Twizzler.
it looks like a Twizzler, and you slide it into this thing that looks kind of like the backside of a needle, where you thread a
the
needle.
eye of a needle.
But that's the pointy side, and it's got a big metal handle on it. And you'll pull your little file out, and you'll put this thing in, and you will push until the part of the
beef
handle
jerky
touches.
Twizzler thing.
Yeah. Then you pull it out,
Shoved
and the little beef jerky Twizzler sucker stays in the tire, and then you cut off the excess that's still sticking out. And
It's like a putty. It's really sticky.
it's like so tarry. But yeah, they have like 100 plugs in this tire,
And it holds air.
and it holds tire pressure. So I was like, man, I was always under the assumption this was like a janky shade tree mechanic type operation, but no, this is great. And our instructor's like, yeah, I have plugs in my tires that have been there for like 70,000 miles.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
yeah.
Okay. So that opened my eyes a lot to, okay, you can do some, you can have a toolkit that is very small that does a lot for you in a trail and maintenance setting in your car where, if you pop a tire, I don't even need a spare now. I mean, I'm still going to keep my spare on the car because if the sidewall gets punctured on the tire, the plug isn't going to fix that.
Yeah.
But it's like, wow, I can do a lot with these tools that I had previously negative assumptions of.
Yeah. The I did not actually do the plugging that
Used
way.
the other plug.
There was another way of doing it, which I think the instructor said it was newer to him. He had not personally driven a tire with this type of plug in it for an extended distance, but it looked like a little rubber coated screw.
Yeah, it was a rubber coated
It was
screw.
a rubber coated screw, and you just stuck that into the hole and twisted it in with a screwdriver. And I was the only one who did it that way, and the only one who didn't sweat because it's a lot less difficult to screw into a hole than filing it and shoving in the putty and all that. So I got it easy. I'm not sure if that was super beneficial, but it was. I loved that. I was like, I could do this.
I could plug a hole like
I
this.
could plug a hole like this. I did see the other gals in the group. They successfully did the putty thing. So yeah. So that was day one. Learning tires. We also learned a whole lot about. I had no idea what a differential was. I didn't know how
what a differential was either.
I did not know how a car works, honestly. Suspension and the connection between tires and all of that.
The difference between independent suspension and connected suspensions.
And that was all like classroom. I mean, it wasn't class. Well, there was a little bit of classroom.
We were standing in the shop.
But we stood in the shop for the most part. And that was where I realized, wow, I shut my brain off when mechanic things start. I just assume I can't understand it. Yeah. And so I really had to fight the urge to just assume I couldn't understand it. which and I was able to retain a good bit of information that proved helpful later on
Yeah.
when we did take to the trails. I could at least I had a little semblance of an idea of how everything was working.
Yeah.
But yeah, that first day I was having to fight within myself to no, this is important for you to understand. Like, don't just assume Philip gets it. You need to do this too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of a mentally taxing day one, getting into gear.
Yeah. In the learner mode.
Literally. But yeah, getting into that learner, instructee,
Yeah.
all new information. So
Yep.
yeah, so that was day one.
Yeah, that was fun. Let's see, what else did we hit on the other days?
We talked about different kinds of like dangerous scenarios, things to consider.
Yeah, a lot
in
of trip planning.
Trip planning, yeah.
Trip planning and recommended equipment was a lot of what we covered as well.
And also well, I guess that would fall into trip planning, but like a water crossing or mud or sand, like different terrain and weather, things like that.
What gear to have for different terrains.
And
what to consider if it's rained and you're in a mountainous area. What to look for landslides. And
something I had not really considered, but that is so much a part of our American culture of, you fast paced, get it done as soon as possible kind of a thing. A lot of times it sounds like in more remote areas or less developed countries where they don't have paved roads or tarmac or asphalt or whatever.
Yeah.
The conditions of the roads and the dangers of weather, things like that factor in. So like you really have to take that into account, and it's okay to say, I'm not going to make it. I can't take this trip. I'm going to wait a week. Or I can't take this trip. I'm going to wait a few days. Or even stop in the middle of a trip if you're, halfway to a place and like, you could go this way and try to shave off 3 hours, but
it increases your risk.
It's risk. Yeah. So the risk
Yeah.
often will outweigh the benefit of getting somewhere and doing something on time, unless it's an emergency.
If you can guarantee your arrival at that location one day later, that is way more valuable than attempting to shave off one day and possibly increasing your trip by 2 or 3 days if something breaks.
Yeah.
And if something breaks, the amount of additional resources your organization or station has to expend in order to go and recover you.
Right.
Makes it like an exponential loss.
The fast-paced nature of our society also redefines urgency.
Yeah.
And I think that is something we are going to have to take into pretty drastic consideration when going overseas. What is truly urgent.
Yeah.
And a training that starts a few days late is that's not the end of the world. And I think it will be a lot less of a thing on people's minds.
Yeah.
Like, to get somewhere a few days late is not as big a deal than here. If you don't make it,
an axle 10 miles from where I need.
Yeah. So
really
I don't know,
rocky
just
road.
that idea of urgency, getting somewhere on time, in quotes, that, just kind of throwing that out the window in light of all the other things that can factor into a trip. So that was enlightening.
Yeah. No, the planning aspect. One thing that they really hit on, which I have thought about a lot in context of aircraft, but have never thought in context of vehicles, is just like your vehicle's load capacity. Even if it's if it's a truck, I have this much towing capacity. But there's also stuff like, if you have a roof rack, how much can you put on that roof rack before your car becomes unstable because you've moved the center of gravity up, so you can't take like hills that are as steep because you increased your chance of flipping, and like there's all these factors of what are cars built to handle, and how do you make sure you stay within the parameters of what they're built to do. Like one of the things they even talked about is, you get a car, it's well designed for all the standard gear that are on it. Then you're like, ooh, I want a bigger tire because that will get me farther. That also increases the torque on the rest of the engine, differentials, gears, and you might put a bigger tire thinking like, now I can get farther, but you end up breaking other components of your car because it wasn't made for something that's going to put that much more torque on something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's got me thinking a lot more about vehicles in the same way that I think about airplanes, as far as know your equipment, know how to use your equipment. We also got to use this piece of equipment called a high lift jack.
It was a very cool...
It is a cool piece of equipment. It is it's a, how would you say it, like a manual, almost like a geared jack that can lift a car 4 feet. It's got like a 4-foot throw.
I love it. Yeah.
Where it can drop down to about 6 inches tall, slide under something, and lift that thing 4 feet off the ground. And it doesn't take a ton of effort for you to crank this thing to bring it up. It doesn't take a ton of effort for you to lower it.
I don't know if it goes up 4 feet. I think the track is 4 foot, but you're not supposed to go all the way to the top.
Yeah, so maybe it's like 3.5 or a little more than that. I mean, you can get a lot of movement out of that. But then you can also turn it around and basically use it like a come-along. Or as a pulling
like
device if you have to pull yourself out of a ditch, or a rut. So
yeah.
It was a very cool piece of equipment.
So we all worked together learning about different not ratchet straps, but different
kinds of straps.
And chains and how to use them and how to be safe. I think that was a big thing for me, was because practically I don't think I will be super I see myself being less involved in the actual car retrieval if in an emergency situation or in a situation where a car gets stuck. However, they did cover a lot of safety and crowd control being a big factor in a lot of countries of, people just... you got a car stuck, you're going to draw a crowd anywhere. People are going to be curious. And so learning the proper safety parameters and what to watch out for, how to approach things, I could see myself using that information.
Yeah.
And also just watching something like that happen, I could jump in and be told what to do and kind of have an idea. So we flipped a vehicle back onto
they got
its
a junker
tires.
out there,
They had thrown it over onto its side. Yeah, so that was a fun day.
Yep.
And then
the
we
last
finally
2 days
we finally hit the trails.
We hit the trails. Yeah.
And it had rained.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
slushy today.
It was
today was our
real
last
muddy,
day,
real soupy today.
Yeah.
We're not sure why, because it hasn't rained.
I think
because
it was cold the other days. Stuff hadn't really thawed below.
It
and
was
we
cold.
hit it for a whole day, churning that stuff up.
That's fair.
So.
Oh, I bet it was even worse for the afternoon crew.
Oh yeah.
Ugh, it was so cold.
It was very cold. Beginning of the week.
Yesterday, standing on the trail before getting in the vehicles, we learned how to use a winch.
Yep.
And all of that, but that required standing outside the vehicle in 37 degrees, and I did not have enough socks on.
Yeah.
2 pair were not enough. So we're like stomping our feet, bouncing around, praying for the sun to come over the trees enough to warm us up. Once we got in the vehicles, it was fine because boy was I sweating. It didn't matter that it was freezing outside.
Yeah.
I was so nervous. The adrenaline.
Oh yeah.
I see why people go mudding now. Like, there's not a draw for me to go do that on a regular basis.
Mostly because our CRV would break in half.
Even if we had, a 4-wheel drive
You wouldn't be like, come on, girls, let's get in and go
Bronco.
hit the trails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not something I would choose to do. However, I see the appeal
Yeah.
now that I didn't before, because there is a huge adrenaline rush when you climb a hill
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or when you drive through soup
Yep.
that was a road once.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
They
weird
had-
to feel the car because you're supposed to, if there's deep ruts, like from people driving through something a bunch of times, you're just supposed to follow them
It
and
kind
kind
of
of
felt
keep the tires straight. But it's weird to turn a corner and the car is not just pulling at the front.
it's
But
sliding.
it's like, yeah, it's sliding and it's like rotating around the middle.
It's
like
like-
as if your back wheels could turn too.
It's like those kids' toys, like the
Yeah, yeah.
trains on the tracks or
Yep.
the cars that like slide into the slot.
Yeah.
I felt like that.
Yeah.
It was honestly a really fun feeling.
It was fun.
Sliding in the ruts. That was comforting to me. I was like, I cannot slide
I
off the
can't
side.
get out of this.
I can't get
Yeah.
out of this. I have to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the scariest thing was not we didn't figure out the hill assist or the descent
Yeah.
braking because
In
in
the
an
automatic transmission.
in the automatic. So there was the manual, and the pro to having a manual 4x4 or 4-wheel drive off-roading is that you can use engine braking.
Yeah. Real low gear, and that engine will just keep you moving slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the automatic, they have a switch that you can flip for descent,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to slow you down. It works great when you engage it.
When you
but
know
the
how
first,
to activate it.
The
Yeah.
first 2 hills we descended were very fast.
Yeah.
But the instructor didn't freak out.
Nope.
Thank you, Tony. So we were
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, it was thrilling.
It was thrilling. Yeah. Those were, as one who has never 4x4 or off-roaded before, I say with a complete confidence, those trails were no joke.
I appreciated that they had several elements that will factor into pretty much anywhere we'll go overseas, which is uneven ruts, so
Yeah.
you're driving at an angle,
Yep.
hills, rocky hills, and very deep mud.
Yes.
They had all of that, plus down trees and things. That on the different trails that kind of gave us experience in those areas. So as close to what a jungle drive would feel like as South Carolina can offer.
Yes.
Is
accurate.
kind of how I understand it. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
a really fun
Yep.
training.
Our instructors did a fantastic job. For any of you looking to move to an area where you might need off-road training, I personally highly recommend
Taking
JAR's
this.
4x4 course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've been doing it for 20
said they've had-
years. Almost 3,000
They've had
people.
over 2,000 people, probably closing in on 3,000 people go through this training.
And they've done it overseas as well.
Yeah.
But they've been developing it for a while. It was really fun.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that.
Yeah.
It took us a long time to cover that week
Yeah.
in this
Well,
conversation.
that was a lot of new learning in a week.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And now that we've fully explained it, no one needs to take the course. They can just listen to our explanation.
They can just listen to us. And if you
Just-
really want to, if our explanation verbally wasn't enough, in the description will be a link to a video that I made about the 4x4 training course. So. Alrighty. All right. Well, I think that covers it.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Letting us process our week into
We'll
microphones for you
Talk
guys.
to you guys next month. Goodbye.
Bye.